To Clydesdale Media. Fueled by C4, Cellucor, and Extend. Use the code Clydesdale to get 20% off at checkout at c4energy.com. On Clydesdale Media, where we bring you the widest array of content here on our YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notifier so you're first to know when new episodes are available. What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast, where we are doing our series highlighting the athletes of the 2023 CrossFit Games semifinals. And we have with us today none other than Mitch Stevenson. Mitch, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm great. So I met you last year at the MAC.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Did a couple short interviews with you there, but we've never had you on for like a little bit longer video or interview. So I'm stoked to do this today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, so I wanted to start by saying, when I was doing the research on you, you've been around this sport a long time.
Yeah.
Like you are OG.
Weird. I guess, man, I don't feel like that, but I guess time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. So you started back in 2015.
Yeah.
I read that you played soccer in high school, maybe a little bit in college.
Yeah, that's right.
So what made you find CrossFit? Was it an accessory to your soccer playing, or was it just something brand new?
It was something new. I remember like in high school, I hadn't heard of CrossFit, didn't know about it, but I remember specifically in weight training class, we have test day and you have just kind of all these different things. And I was never like really good at one of them. And, you have like the 40, you have, all these different things. And I remember specifically thinking in the gym, I was sitting on the floor just kind of watching. I was like, man, I wish there was something that kind of encompassed everything. Like in like the best person who was like in the middle or like near the top of all this stuff could win. And not just like just the fastest or just the heaviest squat, or like what about the person who has the good mile time and a good squat and can be fast and yeah, so I had this kind of thought in my head, but I'd never heard of CrossFit. I like to lift, I like to play soccer, I like to play sports and do kind of everything. So then eventually, when I was working for a summer in college, I came home and I had a friend who told me to come out to a CrossFit workout he was doing. I was like, okay. So went, and the workout was 100 thrusters for time. That was my first ever exposure to CrossFit, and it wrecked me. I did that 95 pounds, and I remember being done with it, and then they're like, "Okay, everyone's done. Let's go for like a cool down jog." And I couldn't jog. My legs had locked up, so I had to walk the cool down jog, and I was humbled in that moment, but also like, wow, there's something to this thing. So
one of our listeners said barf.
Yeah, I'm not a barfer, but if I was, for sure.
Yeah. My first workout ever was Murph. So
if you're a barfer.
yeah. So I started CrossFit at 500 pounds.
Oh,
and
wow.
did a very, very scaled version of Murph. And so now it's like a very special workout for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. When was that?
2011.
Okay. Yeah. So 2011, I just graduated high school, so I was playing soccer at that point, and like that's when I hadn't found CrossFit yet, but I was trying to figure out the next steps for me, at that point in my life. So
yeah, one of our listeners, Damien, says you don't know how about pacing a workout on day one.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, being a soccer player, that was actually something that I had a little bit of. I knew, how to run. I knew how to push myself, but not go too fast right away. And I remember one of the coaches, or maybe it was just one of the other members that I was taking the class with, was like, "Hey, make sure you don't go out with a huge set." And so I learned quick how to pace. And that's been one of my strengths in the sport is there's nothing wrong with smaller sets. You can use it to your advantage, but if you take big sets every time, if it's 50 something and you want to get to 25 because it feels good mentally, but it puts you in a hole, and then you're doing fives the rest of the way out, like, what was the point? So true. Yeah, you got to learn that pacing, and I guess maybe that was one way to have a rude awakening to the importance of it.
Yeah, I'm 12 years in and still trying to figure that pacing thing out. So,
Yeah. Yep, for sure.
so you got to take part in regionals,
Yeah.
and this year is probably the closest thing back to that. Are you excited about that?
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, so my first regional was in 2014. The first regional I ever saw was in 2014. I mean, my first one competing in was 2015. And every year since then, it's changed in some way. And in 14, when I watched the regional, I felt like I had a good concept of what it was. There's 40 people from the Northwest region, and then it moved, and then it became 20 people from the Northwest region and 20 people from Canada West. And then the next year, it changed again a little bit, and then the next year it changed again, and then there was the super regional with California, and when we all merged with them. So yeah, and then it's just continued to change, as we all know, in recent years. But yeah, this year seems definitely the closest. There's a lot of guys still, that are, in competing with Cole Sager and Brent and Justin Medeiros, even in 2018 was at regionals. And so yeah, it's fun. I mean, it feels good. It's going to be unique this year with 60 people. I'm curious to see how, that'll flow. Are there going to be 6 heats? I don't know for sure how it's all going to look, but it's going to be cool. And yeah, it will be closer to regionals for sure.
Yeah, I've heard rumor that heats of 15. I just don't want them to make the floor too wide for the
Yeah,
spectators, because
totally.
once you get too wide, it's hard to tell the story. And I
Yeah,
think in the West, what's unique is on the women's side, you're getting 10. On the men's side, you're getting 9. If you do a final heat of 10, that tells a story,
yeah.
right? And
Oof.
especially on Sunday, you'll know kind of if you're just outside, by what heat you're in on that last day. And I think for the spectator, it may not be the best for the competitor, but for the spectator, that's huge.
Yeah, and that matters for sure for not only just the growth of the sport, but I mean, when I come home, after competing, and people have, told me how rough it was to watch, because, you can't fault it, but you can only show the first, the people in the lead, or, the big names, that's what draws the attention. So it's not a bad thing, but it's just the nature of, yeah, telling a story. And when there's, yeah, 15 people, it'd be rough to follow along with that story.
Yeah, I actually did a riff on this. I think they should put a post or something at the end of every lane with a GoPro, and you as the athlete get a copy of that footage of your lane for every event.
That'd be
And
fun.
for the broadcast, they can use those GoPros to kind of um, go to those moments when someone in that lane is doing well.
Yeah, totally. And it just like from the finish line straight down, or
Correct.
yeah, yeah, why not?
And that way, then you don't have people in the front rows around with their cameras trying to film everything for their family member. So the audience gets a better view, because you, the athlete, know you're going to get an unobstructed view after you're done.
Yeah, photo finish every time.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So you made the games, I think back in 2018.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
Oh man, it was awesome to make the games. The That's kind of a long story. I mean, so I'd been to regionals in 15, 16, 17, and then 18. So the last 4 times we've had regionals, and progressively improved and made some changes to kind of, really focus in on what I wanted, which was to get to the games. In 2017, I missed by like 4 points. You know, if one thing would have gone differently. Could have been a different story. Joe Scally and I had a race to the finish. I kind of eased up and he kind of sprinted past me. If that would have been different, like there's 5 points, then I would have gone. So I had that kind of in my head the whole year. And on top of that, I had been battling a significant back injury from the 2017 regional. I really hadn't tested any of the workouts until like 2 weeks before. There were heavy kettlebell deadlifts and my back was just bugging me. So I was able to make it through regionals in 17 and just miss out and felt good. So I thought my back was better at that point. But sometimes when you compete, you can't feel anything. And your adrenaline or your mind just kind of takes over. So, like 3 days after the conclusion of 2017 regionals, I felt something a little bit different in my back. Like it just wasn't quite right. Couple weeks go by and I start to realize like I can't do a calf raise on my left leg. Getting a lot of like referred pain down my leg, kind of telltale signs of something else going on. So I ended up going and getting an MRI and having some imaging done, and then going to some doctors and going over that stuff with them and having them tell me like I had a significant bulge in my disc, my L5S1. And so that was pretty disheartening because I felt like I was right on the cusp of doing what I really wanted to do, and then feeling like now I don't even know what to do. So I spent that pretty much year, 2017, rehabbing my back on my own, and kind of seeking out any help that I could and figuring out what worked for me and learning a lot, just learning a ton, which was invaluable. And the adversity that I faced there was super significant, but I was able to kind of turn it around. And I remember feeling like I have to figure out how to use this to my advantage. And so I learned a lot about rehab. I learned a lot about how to get healthy and how to go through an injury and how to keep moving and the importance of moving, even though you're might feel like you can't. I mean, because I was at the point where I couldn't bend down. I could barely put my socks on. I was limping anytime I walked. A lot of people know what I'm talking about. Um, and, it really made me question kind of my worth. I've always been a capable person and wanted to use my body to the maximum that I could, and love to have my little cousins and nieces and nephews jump around and climb on me. And, I couldn't do any of that stuff. And it really took part of me. But I also, like I said, realized that I had to use this. So I started realizing that even though I can't train like normal, I could do a lot of visualization and I could do reps in my mind, and did a lot of workouts in my head, full workouts, and something I still do now. And because of that experience, like I did that every single day as I laid on ice or whatever I was doing in my rehab to try to get better. And so 2017 was pretty much that, and into 2018. And I ended up, feeling good enough to go through the open, and tried to maximize everything I could and work hard on the assault bike and anything that didn't, cause pain. And eventually started feeling better to the point where I could start lifting a little bit again. And obviously got to regionals and was able to perform well and get 5th place, which was amazing because of the, adversity that I faced, not only missing out the year before, and then making it the next year, but also just because of the type of year I had. And so it was, all of that kind of combined into one thing of making it, and it really meant a lot to me to be able to make it and to be able to push through probably one of the loneliest times of my life. And be able to achieve something. And that it really showed me that you hear the great, athletes say, if you put your mind to something, you can do it. And that's because they've put their minds to something and they've achieved it. They're not saying that because it just sounds good. They're saying it because that's something that they've done. And so it showed me that, wow, if you really do that, you really do dedicate yourself and you create a plan and you follow the progression and you're purposeful and intentional and efficient, you can do that kind of stuff. You can put your mind to something and achieve it. So there were a lot of lessons in it, and it all kind of came to a point in 2018 down in Del Mar, um, on that Sunday when I, heard my name being called in that fifth spot instead of not hearing my name called in that fifth spot. Um, so it was cool. It was awesome, and um, I haven't had that again as an individual. So I'm hoping to um, do that again this year.
It's really funny because I had the same injury almost at the same time you did.
Mm,
And I didn't handle as well as you did. I sunk into a depression and lost my self-worth, and I had lost 200 over 250 pounds, was
hmm
doing really well with everything, and I let it like totally stop my progress and go in the other direction. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've found that again, my self-worth and all of that, and able to rehab it and get back to doing CrossFit again.
It's crazy. I think a lot of people have some kind of story like that. It doesn't have to be in fitness, but when you're in pursuit of something and you're purposeful and you're intentional, like I said, you come up with a plan and things are clicking and you're feeling some of that success. Like oftentimes, there's something in that time when you're really firing that something happens and it can get derailed. And it's all about how you respond to things and whether you respond immediately or it takes a while to figure it out. Like I think we all have, that to some extent. And that's what makes, life so amazing is that we can all be doing different things or be passionate about different things, but we all can relate in the story of, whatever adversity that we face and whatever things we have to overcome.
Yeah, one of our listeners, Damien, says, "Did he say the assault bike doesn't cause pain?" And I can personally say that was the one machine that didn't hurt my back when I that injury happened, because I couldn't hinge anymore. And on the
Exactly.
assault bike, I could stay upright. I actually had a rower in my house, and I sold it and bought an assault bike so that I could at least move.
hmm
Um, and it was the best thing I did because I could do something.
Yeah. Yeah. The assault bike has saved me many times. I mean, whenever I have something going on, I can always go to the assault bike and
Yeah.
it still causes pain. I think Damien's saying like, it's going to
Right.
cause pain because it's the assault bike and you're going to push on it and it's going to hurt. But yeah, I mean, you can move oftentimes, whether it's a back thing or a shoulder thing. I've been in a sling and, had one arm strapped here and then the other one's working. We're just going with the legs. So the assault bike saved me many times and I was in the same spot. The only thing with the back is like you got start easy because you can't twist too much to start. So I would like, take the seat and shove it up as far as I could and try to be as upright as
Yeah.
possible, looking like I'm like just riding a bike on a Sunday afternoon. But
Yeah, I know when I first started, I didn't even use the arms. It was just get my legs moving, get some blood
yeah,
flowing. But yeah, it was a miracle machine for me.
yeah, absolutely.
So then you make the games in 18. There's like a little bit of a hiatus, and then CrossFit went crazy, the world went crazy, and then 21 you go back to the games on a team. I love it. And
hmm
was that a different kind of experience for you?
Yeah, I went into 2018 feeling like I was a rookie, but I didn't want to have that over my head or be like consumed by that. But there really is something to your first time at anything, and experience is so valuable. So 2018, I was hungry to do well, but didn't handle a lot of the situations that were dealt to me in the ways I would have liked to. And so 2021 on a team, I felt much more like I knew what I was doing, even though it'd been a couple years since being there. And I knew even just the walk, from the expo hall to the Coliseum, like I know the walk. I know how to get around. I know what things look like, what it feels like to be under the lights, what it feels like to be on the turf, and all that stuff. Those decisions that you have to make in between. Some you don't have to think about them as much. The questions you have, some of those you don't have to ask. So some of that stuff that just gets in your head, you can kind of push to the side and just focus on the task at hand. And I struggled with that in 2018, and then 2021, I felt like I was able to handle that better. And part of that too is because it's a team and it's less stressful. Like
Right.
in all reality, the team experience is super special because whenever you can be in a group, like we're made to be with people as humans, we're just designed for that. And when you have a group of people, whether it's a big group or a small group, bought in, like amazing things can happen, and it's amazing what you can feel with a group of people who are pushing to the same goal. Whether it's you're all coaches at the gym and you want the same thing for the members, or you're a team and you're trying to go win the CrossFit Games. It's fun to be on a team that wants the same things, and so and that takes some of the stress off of it. So I definitely felt less stressed because I just knew what I was getting into. I had 3 other people um, who I love, and one, my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife now, Carrie, um, was on the team, and it was just like she competed at the games in 2019, and I did in 2018, and then 2021 we got to compete on a team together. So there are just a lot of things that made it fun, and a good time. It was tough as well, but yeah, it was unique to try to lead that group and take the experiences that I had as an individual and bring them to the team.
So I'm going to take a quick break from the CrossFit stuff, and we'll come back to
Yeah, yeah,
last year and then into this year. And I want to get into some more fun stuff. You bring up Carrie. I
yeah,
got to meet her at the MAC last year too, and she's really fit, as you said. She's a
yeah.
games competitor, just like you are. Did you guys meet through CrossFit?
Yeah, originally. So we live in Lyndon, Washington, a little small town, right on the border of Canada. And we're we met in Oregon. And at the time I was living in Oregon and she was living in Montana. And we met through some mutual friends. And I was like, "Hey, I'm Mitch." She's like, "Hey, I'm Carrie." And I was like, "Oh, I'm from Lyndon. Where are you from?" And she said, "Lyndon." And it's this tiny town. We never knew each other. We never met, but we were from the same place and then living, in completely different states than where home was. So like immediately, I was like, "Oh, I'll remember you." So we just kind of met, and then we met kind of again in 2017 at regionals. She was at regionals and I was at regionals, and we're both competing, and uh, we were both on an assault bike and just kind of talking because we hadn't seen each other in a while. And I was like, "Hey, yeah, I just moved back to Lyndon," and she was like, "No way, I'm moving back to Lyndon in a few months." And so then, some time went by again. We hadn't met, and then I was training for the games, and she was back in Lyndon at the time and training at a different gym in a nearby town. And my coach asked her to come and help me kind of prep for some of the game stuff, and we had seen each other at regionals in 18 as well. So, yeah, we just kind of crossed paths, and then eventually we met again outside of CrossFit at church, and started kind of going to church together, and being a little more intentional with our time, and training a little bit more together, and then just sitting on the floor and talking for a couple hours after training, and
Yeah.
so and then she came over and joined the gym that I'm at, and since then we've dated and then got married, and yeah, it's been fun, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what took you so long? God kept putting her in front of you over and over and over again, and it took you all that time to ask her out?
Well, we're at different places in our life. I kind of had a we both actually
I'm
kind
just
of
giving you
had
a hard
this.
time.
No, but really, I mean, we both had a kind of. It's funny, you can give yourself an idea of the way things should be, you know, whether it's because of an example you've had in your life or because of something you believe or, you know, whatever it is. And I kind of had this thought that um, I wouldn't date someone else who's doing CrossFit competitively because, like, I didn't feel like it would really work as well for whatever reason. I don't know at the time, but yeah, you said God just kind of brought us together over and over again, and God really kind of stripped those walls down for both of us because we both kind of felt that way. And you know, eventually it was like, man, we really enjoy spending time together, and we relate in a way that's hard to relate with anyone else because we were doing this games thing, you know, when no one else was where we were at. Like the gym I was at, you know, I have some of I think the best coaches around who own the gym, but there are no other athletes that were doing it. And my back was really injured at the time, and I was super lonely. And you mentioned, you know, feeling kind of depressed when your back hit, and like I felt that too for sure. Like I just knew that I wanted to keep trying this thing, and I knew that God had given me a desire for it, and He'd given me an ability for it, and I was to steward that. And um, and Carrie understood that when I talked about it, you know, and I think that's kind of what really pulled us together was we had an understanding and a similar goal, and we were wired similarly in that way. So yeah, like we crossed paths a lot, you know, but eventually it was like, oh wow, this is what I'm going through, and this is what you're going through, and it's similar, and it feels good to express that, and it feels good to talk about it and be open with that, and that turned into, you know, long conversations that were more than just about CrossFit.
Yeah, I was giving you a hard time, but we all know like God's time and our time are two different things. And
Hmm.
maybe it was not meant to be before it happened. And
Right.
you needed each other in that moment. And that's when it was just
Yeah,
destined to be. Um,
for sure.
and so I want to talk about the gym you go to. I had Gabby on the other night,
Yep.
um, who I love dearly. She's just one of the nicest people I've ever met in this space. Um, I love it. CrossFit is spelled with a one in the middle of it, and she
Yep.
explained it because it is a God-centered um, gym.
Yeah.
He is the one, and he's in the middle. I know that you are very strong in your faith. In
Hmm.
fact, one of the hardest things about doing thumbnails for you and researching for you is you don't put workout pictures on your Instagram.
Yeah.
And so, like, I had to go to Carrie's Instagram to get pictures of you to be able to make like a thumbnail because it is very God centered. So, when did you come to Christ? Were you always that way, or was it like an epiphany at one point? Or
Yeah. So for me, um, super blessed to grow up in a really strong family home. My dad's a pastor. My grandpa was a pastor. They pastored the same church that I grew up in, you know, so I heard from my grandpa or my dad every Sunday morning, you know, and some PKs, pastors' kids have a hard time with that kind of thing. I loved it. Like those two men are, you know, the most important men in my life, and I look up to them immensely and know that, you know, because of their decisions and their stewardship of what God had given them, like that comes down to me generationally. And so I don't even honestly remember the moment when I was little, you know, praying the prayer. Some people who've grown up in the church have this, you know, moment they remember. My brother has a moment he remembers because he was stealing some M&Ms and he got in trouble, and my mom and dad had to sit him down and he realized he needed Jesus, you know, and it's an awesome story. I don't have that's not me. Like I don't have that. Some people have, you know, amazing stories where God really did bring them, you know, through something and gave them a moment where he spoke to them clearly. And I don't really my testimony I think is just God being faithful throughout my life and realizing at a young age that I need him and then continuing just to ask him to be my savior and acknowledging that he is my savior, and throughout, you know, all the experiences and the decisions I have to make and when things don't go my way, at least when I think they're not going my way, and realizing, that like you said, God's timing is different than mine, and that I can find peace in that, and just kind of learning some of that stuff as God just shows up all the time. And that's kind of, for me, I guess that's kind of how God grabbed me was he showed up day one, and he's showing up today, and he's going to show up tomorrow, and that never changes. And it's never changed once. And that's where my faith is, and that's where it will continue to be.
So you said that when you met Carrie, you had this idea that you didn't want to date or marry another CrossFitter. But how important was it that that person be as faithful as you?
Yeah, I mean, it's important because, we should be a team. Like, in whatever we're doing, we should be equally yoked. We should be on mission with the same things, and we should have communicated so we can accomplish that. So that's for sure important because it's my lifeline. It's what I have. It's how I have peace and how I have joy and how I can get through life, knowing that if 2020 was still going on, that God's got it, and that even if I don't understand it, I know that He can work all things for the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. So, yeah, to have her aligned with that as well is very important, and was very important. With that said, like, God is in the business of changing lives, so that also wasn't something to me that was like, you if I'm going to marry someone, we're going to be united in that for sure. But when we first, got together and I met her, that wasn't something that was just like, I guess wasn't something that was just on my mind right away. I guess for us, it was unique though, because like our relationship, took a while to establish, and then we kind of reunited at church where it was kind of unspoken, like we knew we were united in that way. And then as we progressed, and as we became more intentional with our conversation, we could kind of go deeper in those things and just realize like we were going the same direction. And you always hear like the example of, if you're looking for someone, like maybe you're doing it wrong. Maybe you should run your race, with your head down and go for a bit, and then look up and see who's running alongside you. And that's kind of how it felt for me, was like, I mean, to be honest, I'd never dated anyone before Carrie. And so I was pretty head down, and I was pretty just kind of running, doing my thing. And I think there's good and bad things to that, but I was head down running, and I kind of picked up and looked around, and there she was in God's timing. I kind of looked around other times, when I wished things would have happened earlier, but it wasn't then. And there was no one running with me at that time. And so to see her running along with me and knowing that we were running the same direction that's what I needed. And I needed someone to come run with me at that moment.
I love that analogy. I think that is really a cool concept, that, you have to run your own race. And then it is about the people you surround yourself with. And I'm assuming that's why you're at I Love It CrossFit.
Yeah.
Those people run with you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started CrossFit in Oregon when I went to school in Oregon, and like was there and had some amazing people around me there as well. But I just knew, I needed to make a change if I was going to try to get to the games. Like I needed to dedicate time to it. So I needed to move home. I needed to move somewhere where I had an established group of people that could support me in a different way. And so yeah, it took some decision making, because Matt and Kaylee, the owners and my coaches, really the reason I came back, told me, the first thing they told me was to like, well, don't just come back. We will coach you. Don't just come back though. Like look around and see if make sure this is the right thing. And that in and of itself to me was like, okay, well, that told me it was the right thing, because you're not just saying, yeah, just come back and we'll just, we'll make it happen and all this stuff. Like, you're telling me to be wise. You're telling me to take my time and make a good decision and not just jump at the first thing I think of. And so right then I was just like, okay, like, so I did. Well, I looked around and, tried to make a wise decision, but that really confirmed to me that this was the right move, because they gave me wise counsel. And I've continued to get that from them and from the people at the gym, and yeah, from the other coaches and the other athletes and the members there. Like, one thing we always do, and I've always done, is I take the class workout. Like, I do the class. I compete, and I want to, compete at the highest level I can. And but the reason I do CrossFit, the reason we all started CrossFit, was because of the community aspect of it, because the people you're doing it with, and I started seeing, even in myself before I moved back, like this, like, pull away from the class and from the people, and this, like, I'm just training by myself, even while class is going, I'm over here doing my own thing. And sometimes you got to do that. Like, I'm not, trying to bash on people who do that, or it's like, you got to do it. You got to be able to do your own thing. But at the same time, for me, I realized, like, I want to be around the people. Like, and if the workout's not good enough, like, then maybe there's a programming problem. We all do the open, so, like, that's super important at our gym, at I Love It. We all do class every day together, whether we're, trying to be healthy and, lose weight, or we're trying to get stronger and put on weight, or get to the games, or whatever it is. Like, we all do class together. And I think that's just another, yeah, we run the race together, and it's fun.
So we talked to Gabby the other night. Like I said, she was talking about how you guys train together sometimes because you need that push, right?
Yeah.
You need other people who are of similar ability, and that you and her are not of the same type of athlete. And so what you're good at, she's not necessarily good at, and vice versa. How has she helped you during this process?
Yeah, I mean, like she said, we don't have the same strength. So I remember when she first kind of came and started training with us, there was a workout, I think it was like lighter, like barbell cycling, snatch, double unders and toast bar or something, with the rest in there. And she beat me on the workout, and I was like, oh man, like, shoot, you know, but also, okay, this is good. Like, I need this push. I need a extra, especially on these things that I don't like to hold on to the barbell. And she's good at doing that, so there's definitely a lot of things like that. Like, she's really good at DT. DT is one of my least favorite workouts, so it's good to have that push. And it is challenging for me, um, mentally sometimes, to feel like, oh, I have to win, or I have to beat this person, or, like, that's how you feel at the games, or at semifinals, or wherever you're at. Like, it's easy to get caught up in other people's placements, or you start looking at the leaderboard, and, it can take the fun out of it. And so having to deal with that, like, head on, has been super valuable.
That's so cool, because you need that to break up your training too, right?
Yeah.
And she attributes a lot of her gymnastics improvement to you personally, and you helping her out, which I love that camaraderie and almost mentorship from you.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned me being like an OG, and, like, I don't feel like an OG at all, but I do feel like I have learned a lot, and had to go through a lot, and want to keep going, and who am I to keep what I've learned to myself? And sometimes I feel like, there are times in my life when maybe I would have felt like I should do that, and just kind of like, oh, I got a secret, I'm not gonna, tell anyone. Or, like, we play the game in quarterfinals, or we used to at the Open, where, like, you don't release anything until the last second. It's kind of like, I mean, I recognize that there's parts of that are valuable, or, like, you got to play the game. You can't just be naive and, not play the game. But at the same time, like, if we're all in this thing together, we're talking about running races together, and we all want to get better and see where we all can push ourselves. Like, let's help each other along. And if I have something that I see might be helpful, I'm gonna say it, and she'll say it to me, and Carrie and I do the same thing with each other. Like, if I feel like I have some insight on this and how she's doing this, I'll say it, and she doesn't take it as me trying to tell her to do something different. And she does the same for me, and I feel like once you've built trust and you know that you want the same things, it's easy to do that, and it makes it better.
So last year you competed at the MAC, back in individual,
Yep.
and maybe, in my opinion, the most stacked semifinal there was last year. Most of the big names were right there in that final heat with you. You ended up finishing 8th, making the last chance qualifier where you finished 6th, just outside the games in both cases. This year you come in as the 5th seed in the West, probably your highest ranking coming into a competition like at this level. How are you feeling this year, knowing that you have 9 spots? You're coming in as the 5th seed, kind of smack dab in the middle of that. Do you think that you've improved enough over the last year to take advantage of that?
Yeah, I do. I'm excited. I feel blessed. Like, you're asking how I feel about the position I'm in. I feel really blessed because I didn't know if I was going to be able to do the Open this year, because I mentioned my back. I tweaked my back again in January. Spent 3 days literally not moving. Like, I couldn't move. I don't know if you've had a injury since your original injury. Yeah. So the ropes on that one. Yeah, so that happened in January, and I hadn't touched a barbell until the first Open workout. So I got through the workout and just kind of was, like, okay, I'll see how the next one goes, and hopefully it's fine, and kept being fine. And so honestly, I just feel blessed to be where I'm at now, and my body feels good. And my coaches always tell me, like, a healthy Mitch is better than any other kind of Mitch. So like, let's just stay healthy. And that's kind of my goal, is to be healthy and push training as much as I can, but also not go over the edge, because I've done that before. And that's sometimes almost easier to do mentally. Sometimes it's harder mentally to, ease up a little bit, because even our society is so, like, workaholic, like, praise the workaholic. Like, it's still a problem if you have other responsibilities. Like, it's not like just awesome that you worked 70 hours a week. Like, like, we have to have balance. We have to have other things in our lives. And I have, my wife who helps me, and we have some things that we're into. She has a couple horses, and so we have other things in our lives, and that have helped with that, and given me a place to kind of go work on things and create things and build things when they need fix things when they need to be fixed. And so that's been super fun. So I just feel blessed where I'm at right now, and I feel also like I'm fitter than I've ever been. And as I'll just stay healthy and keep doing what I'm doing, and I believe that will get me into that top 9, and I'm excited for what's beyond that.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I was doing some research, and you never know on the internet like how old the research is, but it listed your occupation as ranch hand, farm hand.
Oh, I mean, I guess kind of in right now. Where'd you find that?
It was a coaching profile.
Okay, I don't remember putting that. Maybe I. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I'm doing right now. So
Okay.
yeah, it's fun. Carrie, like, grew up with a horse, and it was a really impactful part of her life, and so she's always wanted to get involved in that again. And so I just love that she loves that. And I've never been involved in horses in my life until now. And so we have two horses, and the reason we can do that is because her sister and brother-in-law just bought some land, 22 acres, kind of in the county, about like 10 minutes from us. And so they have a couple horses, we have a couple horses, and I kind of do the work around the land to keep it, safe for everything. And as we, it's kind of a fixer-upper situation in some ways. And so we're expanding things here and expanding things there and building things. And I have another job that I kind of do some stuff like that for a guy nearby. And so, yeah, it's just kind of morphed into, I guess I'm a little bit of a ranch hand.
Would you say you're an outdoorsy guy? Like you'd rather be outside doing stuff with your hands than inside?
When it's a nice day, for sure. um, I mean, it's rained like all week this week, and I've been building a fence, and that's been pretty tough. But yeah, I mean, I just there's a like I've mentioned the 2017 and 18 when I made the games, and like it was awesome to do that, but it was so lonely for me, and I was really singularly focused, which was important in the time. Like I needed that, and I grew a lot in ways and experiences that I'd rather not, do again. But if I needed to, I know I could do it because I've done it before. Um, and I just remember, like, I had like a triangle. I only went three places. I went to the gym, I went to another gym to swim and to do other things. I went to church on Sunday, and then I guess it's kind of a dime, and then home. And I did rehab at home and stared at the ceiling for hours as I tried to fix my back. Like, and so I, that was my thing. Like I just did that over and over, week after week, and it was cool, like to get through that. And I look back on it in some ways fondly because I feel proud of what I was able to accomplish in those moments and the things that I learned and the things I can take away now. But now I feel like I can not be so zeroed in on just, getting to the games. I can I can be married. Like at that time was the time when I was like, I can't date anyone. I can't do any of this stuff. I said no to everything. Um, and for some people, they might not need to do that. For me, I think I needed to at that time, and I don't need to now. Now I can have a little more, and I have other things to steward. God's put other things in my life that I need to be responsible with, so now I look at all of it now as like, okay, now it's not just this. This isn't just my mission. It's just get to the games again. Like that's why it's a blessing to be where I'm at right now, and also be able to, do the other things and steward the other gifts that I have and the other things that God's put in my life, like two horses, um, that are awesome, and a wife that I love, and so now I have more things going on. And sometimes for me it's challenging because I still want to go to the games and I'm still pursuing that, but I'm doing it in a different way. And sometimes I have to check myself a little bit and remind myself that, you know, I'm my purpose isn't wrapped up in CrossFit. My purpose isn't wrapped up in my number on the leaderboard, which it can be that way easily when you start looking at the leaderboard and then you start realizing, oh, I didn't get first and I'm sad now. Like, what's that about? you know? So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that. Yeah, I feel like I can do more things now and I can be an outdoor person a little bit and not just be in the gym, and my outdoor time doesn't have to just be running or something. So, yeah, it feels good to have a little more balance and be outdoors and create things and problem solve different things. So,
So I'm going to finish up with just a couple fun questions. In that same place where it said you were a ranch hand, it said that your guilty pleasure was pizza.
yeah, anytime, any type, all kinds. Frozen pizza, it doesn't matter. Little Caesars pizza. Yeah, I like just pizza for probably not breakfast, but any other time. Pizza for dessert, it's all good.
Any like set toppings that you're going to go for?
I mean, it just has to have cheese and pepperoni, and then after that, it's just bonus. So if I go to Mod Pizza, I usually just tell them to put pretty much everything on it. Um, but it's got to have cheese and it's got to have pepperoni. I'm
I
pretty.
can't do all the toppings. Can't do all the toppings.
Yeah,
I'm a
you're right.
simplistic guy. Like I'm a
So with that,
pepperoni, cheese, and mushroom guy. That's just
see, sometimes I'm in the space where I'll look at a menu and I'll just look at whatever has the most calories, and I'll just get that. So that's kind of what it's like at Mod. Is like, oh, I can get toppings and it doesn't cost more. Like, let's load it up. But yeah, you're right. Then you get to like sauces, and then it just gets weird because you have anchovies and like others. Yeah, you're right. You have a point.
yeah. But like really, there is no bad pizza, is what you're saying.
Right. That's exactly what I'm saying.
So I also read that your least favorite wad is my favorite wad.
Oh wow.
And that is Randy.
Mm. Yeah.
Is that still the least favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with it, man. I mean, the first time I was really exposed to it was when it came out in 2015 for regionals. Was event 1, and I believe in 2015 at regionals. And so I was just training for it, and it would just destroy me every single time, and it still does. So yeah, part of it might be just like a bad association because I did not do well in that workout. So now I have a little bone to pick with Randy. But yeah, I'm glad it's your favorite because it needs to be a favorite of someone.
Right. Well, and the reason it's my favorite is when they did the team series back in, I don't even remember the years.
Yeah.
I was still healthy, so probably 15, 16.
Yeah.
And one of the team series workouts was a relay of named workouts.
Oh, right.
So I think it was Karen into Randy into Diane into Grace.
Yeah.
So something like that. I know those were the workouts, and I was the Randy leg.
There you go.
Every single one of us PR'd that day, and I PR'd that by like over 2 minutes, and then that just became my jam.
That's it, man. Maybe that's what it's about. It's more about like the experience. If I would have had just a wonderful experience with it, like maybe it'd be my favorite.
Yeah, and it also said in this profile that your favorite was Amanda.
Yeah. I mean, I think I like Amanda because of the skill component to it. Like it's a tricky workout. Like you can't just go crazy, but you also can push it pretty fast. And squat snatches are like, I'm not the best at them by any means, but I think it's just an amazing movement. And the same thing with the ring muscle up. Like it's just cool. Like the squat snatch, you're taking, in that workout 135. Any weight is amazing, but you're throwing it over your head and then you're catching it in a squat and standing up like with 135 pounds. That's amazing. Like, and so the muscle up is amazing to me too, that you're just swinging and coming over and getting, so I think the movements are just so cool. I'm not necessarily the best at Amanda, but I just think it's cool.
Yeah, I will have to agree with you. The greatest feeling in CrossFit is catching a snatch.
Yeah.
In the squat. Because for me, like if I can catch it, I'm gonna stand it up.
Yeah.
Squatting is not my issue. Right. But the technique of catching that snatch, and when you have it, and I can just sit down there going, yep, it's over, and then just stand it up. That is that euphoric feeling.
Yeah, you got it in the bottom, but people are still like, you're like, don't worry. Watch this.
Yep, exactly. Now I've never done a ring muscle up, so I'm assuming that there's a feeling like that, and where you catch it, and all you have to do is press it out.
Yeah,
and that's gonna have a similar feeling.
Yeah, and then you're up. You feel really tall. You're like up high. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, Mitch, this has been awesome. It's been awesome catching up. I think we probably just touched the surface tonight, but it was awesome. Yeah, and totally. I'm going to be in Pasadena, so we will see you there, man.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
And to all our listeners, thank you for jumping in. We'll see everybody next time on the Clydesdale Media Podcast.
Later.